It was just another ordinary afternoon, or at least that's what I thought. The day was warm, the sun filtered through the trees outside, and I was finally home after a long morning of work. Being a power grid engineer, my schedule is often demanding, filled with technical challenges and constant calls. But on that day, I wanted nothing more than to relax, enjoy a cup of tea, and have some quiet time with my family. Little did I know I was about to face one of the most bizarre and unsettling encounters of my life. It began with a knock on the door, a firm, repetitive knock that carried more impatience than politeness. At first I thought it was just another delivery, or perhaps a neighbor stopping by. My wife called out from the kitchen asking if I was expecting anyone. I wasn't. As I walked towards the door, I noticed through the glass panel a man standing there in a uniform of sorts. He had a clipboard in one hand and what looked like a small tool bag in the other. When I opened the door, he introduced himself quickly, claiming to be from the electricity company. He said he was here to check the meter, something about a routine inspection. But right away, something felt off. I work with power systems every day. I know the procedures, the uniforms, the way inspections are scheduled, and none of what he said lined up. The real workers always show ID, and they certainly don't barge in without notice. I studied him carefully. His shirt had a poorly printed logo, slightly faded, like it had been ironed on at home. His clipboard looked almost too clean, with no official forms, just blank sheets of paper. And the bag he carried, too small, too light to hold any real equipment. My instincts told me this wasn't right. I asked him for his identification, but he mumbled something about forgetting it in the truck. Then, without waiting for my permission, he stepped forward as if he owned the place. That's when my patience began to wear thin. I told him firmly that no one enters my home without proper identification. But he smirked almost arrogantly and said, "Sir, this is just a quick meter check. Don't make it difficult." His tone wasn't the tone of a professional. It was the tone of someone trying to assert control, someone who didn't belong there. And he made one mistake. He walked past me, brushing my shoulder, and moved straight towards the side of the house where the meter was. That single act of trespassing lit a fire inside me. You see, when you work as a power grid engineer, you learn two things very quickly. One, electricity is dangerous, and anyone pretending to work with it without training is a threat not only to themselves, but to everyone around them. Two, security matters. Every piece of equipment, every meter, every line has protocols. Allowing someone without clearance near them is not just foolish, it's reckless. I followed him outside, my eyes locked on his every move. He crouched by the meter, pretending to inspect it, but his hands fumbled awkwardly. He didn't even know how to read the numbers correctly. That confirmed it for me. This man wasn't here for electricity. He was here for something else. And I wasn't about to let him get away with it. I called out his bluff. Calmly, I said, "You know, it's funny. I've been working as a power grid engineer for years, and I've never once seen a so-called inspection carried out like this. Care to explain what exactly you're doing?" The look on his face shifted instantly. His fake confidence faltered. His smirk disappeared, and his eyes darted nervously. He hadn't expected me to know the procedures. He hadn't expected me to understand the technical details. In his mind, I was just another homeowner he could trick. He had no idea he picked the wrong house. Instead of answering, he mumbled something again, stood up abruptly, and tried to brush it off. "Just routine maintenance," he said. But the way his hands trembled, the way he avoided my gaze, it told me everything. He was lying, and badly. I could feel my pulse quicken, not out of fear, but out of determination. I wasn't going to let a fraud walk around my property pretending to be something he wasn't. I stepped closer, lowering my voice, making it firm and deliberate. "Listen carefully. You've already trespassed onto my property without permission. You're impersonating an electrical worker, and you're standing in front of someone who knows exactly how the power system works. So I'll ask you again, who sent you? And what are you really doing here?" For a moment, there was silence, just the faint rustle of leaves and the tension, hanging heavy in the air. He shifted uncomfortably, looking back towards the street as if calculating whether he should run. My instincts told me there was more to this than just a scam. His behavior wasn't just sloppy, it was desperate. I needed to keep him talking, to draw out his story. "Do you realize," I continued, "that tampering with a meter is a federal offense? Do you know how much trouble you could be in right now? Not only for trespassing, but for fraud and attempted theft?" The color drained from his face. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, and then he made a move that told me everything I needed to know. He reached into his bag, not for tools, but for something small, hidden. My gut tightened. Was it a weapon? Was it some device meant to tamper with the meter? Whatever it was, I knew this was no harmless act. In that split second, standing between him and my home, I realized this situation was about to escalate. What he pulled out could change everything, and I had to be ready for it. The man standing at my door had a clipboard in one hand and a small black bag in the other. His shirt looked official enough, navy blue with a patch on the chest that simply read, "Utilities." But as someone who had spent more than 2 decades working inside the actual power grid, I knew the real uniforms, the real equipment, and the real procedures. Something about him didn't sit right. His badge was plastic, flimsy, and the logo didn't match the company I worked for. Still, he wore a confident smile, the kind people use when they think they've already won. He introduced himself quickly, saying he was here to check the electric meter because there had been a billing discrepancy. Now, in my career, I've dealt with hundreds of meter readings, maintenance calls, and inspections. There are strict protocols, advance notices, official vehicles, and clear identification. None of those were present. I could already tell he was lying, but I played along, watching carefully. I told him to wait while I grabbed some documents, but instead of waiting politely, he tried to step forward as if he owned the place. That was my first real confirmation that this wasn't about the meter. It was about getting inside. My son was in the living room and my wife was upstairs. I wasn't going to let a stranger just waltz into my home under a fake excuse. I stopped him with a firm hand and asked for his ID again, pretending to be confused. He fumbled, pulled out the same cheap-looking badge, and flashed it quickly before tucking it back. He wanted me to feel pressured, to not question it. But I've seen enough scams to know the signs. He had no handheld reader, no proper equipment, not even the right kind of shoes. At that moment, I felt a strange mix of anger and calm. Anger because someone thought they could target my home and family, and calm because I knew something he didn't. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was an engineer who knew the inner workings of the power grid, the meters, and the entire inspection system. I leaned casually against the doorframe and asked him a few technical questions. Simple ones, the kind any real meter reader would answer without hesitation. What's the model number of the meters you're checking today? And how do you recalibrate them in the field? The shift in his face was instant. His confident smirk cracked, and his eyes darted. He stuttered, gave a vague answer, and then tried to steer the conversation back to why he needed to come inside. That was the moment I knew I had him, but instead of kicking him out immediately, I decided to push the game further. I pretended to be uncertain, scratching my head like I wasn't sure. I asked if he could explain the billing discrepancy in detail. He gave some nonsense about voltage surges causing higher readings. That was laughable. Real surges don't work like that, and anyone in the field would know it. Then, in a slip that gave everything away, he mentioned needing to inspect the breaker box. That was it. A legitimate meter reader has no business inside the house, especially not with breaker panels. His real target wasn't outside, it was inside. I stepped back slightly, making him think I was about to let him in. His eyes lit up. He thought he had won. But as soon as he moved forward, I dropped the mask. "I'm a senior engineer with the state power grid," I told him, voice steady, eyes locked on his. "And you don't belong here." The blood drained from his face. He froze, realizing he had picked the absolute wrong house for his scam. My tone wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of authority. My son, curious from the living room, peeked around the corner, and I signaled for him to stay back. The man stammered, trying to laugh it off, saying it was just a misunderstanding. He backed up, but I wasn't about to let him slip away so easily. I had a decision to make. Do I call the police right now, or do I push him further to expose what he was really after? That choice would decide how this entire encounter unfolded. He took a step back, his fake smile fading completely now. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched the clipboard tighter, realizing the role he had been playing wasn't working anymore. I could see him scanning my face, looking for a crack, hoping I'd soften, maybe give him a chance to spin another lie. But the problem was, I'd already read him like a book. For years, I'd trained younger engineers on how to recognize patterns in systems, where failures hide, and how small errors can give away big problems. This man was no different. His errors were all over him. His badge, his equipment, his answers, his behavior. He wasn't here to read a meter, he was here to trespass, maybe worse. And he had chosen the wrong door. "Here's what you're going to do," I told him, keeping my voice calm, firm, almost commanding. "You're going to stand exactly where you are and not move a muscle while I make a call." He chuckled nervously, shaking his head, trying one last act. "Sir, it's nothing serious. Just a routine check. Maybe there's been some mistake." "No!" I cut in, sharper this time. "The only mistake is you standing on my porch pretending to be something you're not." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, making it obvious that I was scrolling to the local police contact. The color in his face drained further, and he stepped back toward the walkway. My son, still peeking from the side, whispered, "Dad, is he bad?" "Yes," I said firmly, loud enough for the man to hear. "He is very bad, and he needs to leave before he hurts anyone else." That statement broke him. He dropped the act entirely. His polite mask melted away, and I saw the frustration in his eyes. "Fine," he muttered, "you win." He turned sharply, stepping off my porch, but I wasn't about to just let him walk away, not when I had enough evidence to stop him from trying this on another family. I snapped a photo of him with my phone, fast enough that he barely had time to cover his face. He cursed under his breath and quickened his pace down the street. That's when I made the decision. I dialed the police. My voice was steady as I explained the situation, describing the fake ID, the forced attempt to enter my home, and his exact direction of escape. They told me to stay put and keep my family safe while they dispatched a unit. But I wasn't satisfied with just staying inside. I'm an engineer, yes, but I'm also a father, and there was no way I was going to let someone like him think he could target families unchecked. So while my wife kept my son away from the windows, I slipped outside, careful to keep distance, but close enough to track him. He had made it halfway down the block when he glanced back and saw me following. His stride quickened, almost a jog, and he cut across toward the next neighborhood. I knew the layout well. It was a dead end. He had trapped himself without realizing it. By the time the police car rolled in, lights flashing, he was cornered, trying to act like he was just taking a walk. But the officers weren't buying it, not with the description I'd given, and the photo already in their system. They questioned him right there, and when he couldn't provide a real ID, they placed him in cuffs. As they escorted him into the back of the car, one of the officers turned to me. "You probably saved your neighbors from something dangerous today. These guys don't just check meters. They look for easy access, weak homes, and distracted families. You did the right thing." I nodded, but the truth is, inside I was boiling. I thought about what could have happened if I hadn't been home. if he had knocked while only my wife and son were inside, if I hadn't recognized the signs. The idea made me clench my fists. Later that night, as I sat with my family, I explained everything in simple words to my son. Not everyone who knocks on the door is who they say they are. You have to ask questions, and if something feels wrong, you don't let them in. He nodded, wide-eyed, clearly shaken, but also proud that his dad had caught the intruder. That's when I realized something important. My years as a power grid engineer weren't just about maintaining systems and fixing technical issues. They had given me a kind of knowledge that most people don't have, a defense against scams, against people who prey on ignorance. And in that moment, I understood that sharing what I knew could help others. Families needed to hear stories like this to know what warning signs to look for, to stay safe against people who would dare to trespass under fake uniforms and fake smiles. The man had thought he was clever, but he hadn't expected resistance. He hadn't expected someone who not only saw through him, but also stood firm. And maybe, just maybe, he hadn't expected to end his day in the back of a police car. As I locked the door that night, I felt a sense of relief, not just because my family was safe, but because I had reminded myself of something powerful. Sometimes the best defense is simply knowing the truth and refusing to be fooled by appearances. And if there was one thing that encounter proved, it's this. No matter how convincing someone looks, a lie will always crumble when it faces the truth.